In the animated film industry, everyone is trying to make a film franchise considered to be the best of the best, but it's not always very easy to get to that level. There are those like Dragons and Panda, while others like Shrek, Despicable Me, and Ice Age, where they start off strong but went downhill quickly. But however, there is one franchise that we can all agree on is the best, the greatest, the most well known, and that franchise is Toy Story. Focusing on the adventures of a pull-string cowboy doll called Woody, a Space Racer action figure called Buzz Lightyear, and others. This franchise has both entertained both kids and adults as well. But before we talk about Toy Story, let's talk about its creators, the legendary Pixar. Pixar got its start in 1974 when New York Institution of Technologies, or NYIT founder Alexander Schultz, who was also the owner of a traditional animation studio, established the Computer Graphics Lab, or CGL, and recruited computer scientists who shared his ambitions about creating the world's first computer animated film. Edwin Campbell and Malcolm Blanchard were the first to be hired and were soon joined by Alvy Ray Smith and David DeFrancisco some months later, which were the four original members of the Computer Graphics Lab located in converted two-story garage acquired from the former Vanderbilt Whitney estate. Shrew kept pouring money into the Computer Graphics Lab, an estimated $15 million, giving the group everything that they desired and driving NYIT into serious financial troubles. Eventually, the group realized that they needed to work in a film studio in order to reach their goal. Francis Ford Coppola then invited Smith to his house for a 3-day media conference where Coppola and George Lucas shared their visions for the future of digital movie making. When Lucas approached them and offered them a job at his studio, 6 employees moved to Lucasfilms. During the following months, they gradually resigned from CGL, found temporary jobs for about a year to avoid making Shrew suspicious, and joined the graphics group at Lucasfilms. The graphics group, which was a one-third of the computer division of Lucasfilms, was launched in 1979 with the hiring of Campbell from NYIT, where he was in charge of the Computer Graphics Lab. He was then recruited with Smith, who also made the journey from NYIT to Lucasfilms, and was made the director of the graphics group at NYIT. The researchers pioneered many of the CGI foundation techniques, in particular the invention of the alpha channel by Campbell and Smith. Over the next several years, the CGL would produce a few frames of an experimental film called The Works. After moving to Lucasfilms, the team worked on creating the precursor to RenderMan called R.E. Rays, or Render Everything You Ever Saw for short, and developed several critical techniques for CG, including particle effects and various animation tools. John Lasseter was hired to the Lucasfilm team for a week in late 1983 with the title Interface Designer. He animated the short The Adventures of Andre and Wallaby. In the next few years, a designer suggested naming a new digital character composed in computer the picture maker. Smith suggested that the laser-based device have a catchier name, and came up with Pixar, which after me was changed to Pixar, as we know it. In 1982, the Pixar team began working on special effects film sequences for Industrial Light and Magic. After years of research, the key milestones such as the Genesis effect in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and The Stained Glass Knight in Young Sherlock Holmes. The group which then numbered 40 individuals, was spun off as a corporation in February 1986 by Campbell and Smith. Among the 38 remaining employees, there was also Malcolm Blanchard, David Francisco, Ralph Gunningham, and Bill Reeves, who had been part of the team since the days of NYIT, and Tom Duff, who was also an NYIT member, later joined Pixar after its formation with Lucas's 1983 divorce, which coincided with the sudden drop-off in revenues from Star Wars licenses following the release of Return of the Jedi. They know he would most likely sell the whole graphics group. Worried that the employees would be lost and that would happen, which would prevent them from creating the first computer animated movie, they concluded the best way to keep the team together was to turn the group into an independent company. But Moore's laws also suggested the seven-nation computing power for the first film has still some years away, and they need to focus on a proper product. Until then, eventually they decide they should be a hardware company in the meantime. With the Pixar Image Computing as their core product, a system primarily sold to governmental, scientific, and medical markets, they also used SGI computers. Fast forward to 1988, Pixar teamed up with Walt Disney Animation Studios and developed the CAP system, a technique that digitally inks and paints animated drawings, hand drawings. It was used in films like The Little Mermaid, Rescuers, Down Under, and Beauty and the Beast, which were big hits, except for Down Under. So much so that Disney wanted Pixar to make a film for them, and development on their first film began. Beginning as an animated short called Tin Toy, which was about Tin Toy trying to escape a drooling baby, it became the first ever CGI short to win an Oscar. Ed Catmull's goal was to create the first ever fully CGI film, so he pitched a Tin Toy Christmas special to Disney. However, that was scrapped, for instead going one step further by making a 70/80 minute film. Since Tin was too dated by toy standards, he was changed to a Spaceman action figure, originally named Lunar Larry, before sent with Buzz Lightyear after real-life Buzz Aldrin. Another character that changed was a dummy. It was changed into a cowboy doll and named Woody after actor Woody Strode. One idea that really messed things up was Jeffrey Katzenberg, who would later on work at DreamWorks, wanted Toy Story to be more adult, with Woody being a total jerk. Disney hated so much that the project was almost scrapped. Pixar knew that this wouldn't happen, so they did a full rewrite. And so, Toy Story was released on November 22nd of 1995. The film is set in a world where toys come to life when no one is looking, focusing about a cowboy called Woody who belonged to a kid named Andy, who was the favorite, by the way. But his position of favorite has been dethroned when Andy gets a Space Ranger action figure called Buzz Lightyear. They both end up in the hands of a bully called Sid, not to be confused with the one from Ice Age, and have to find a way to get back home. It was a historical film by, like I said before, the first ever fully CGI film. The film did really amazing by getting huge praise from everyone, and grossed over $300 million, and being nominated for 3 Oscars, winning them for special achievement. The film ended up revolutionizing the animation industry, with many more CGI films even to this day. A year later, Pixar made some TV bumpers featuring the characters of Toy Story, since Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, the voices of Woody and Buzz, were too expensive to hire. They brought Jim Hanks, Tom's brother, and Pat Fraley, who was best known as the voice of Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Due to the success of the first film, a sequel is in the works. Unfortunately, like the first film, it had a difficult development. Originally a direct-to-video film a la Disney direct-to-video sequels, but was then put into theaters after a screening. There were many troubles during development, like the film being deleted, 9 months to complete, etc. But when the film was finally made, Toy Story 2 was released in November 13th of 1999. In this one, Andy's gone to summer camp, which leaves the toys for a vacation of their own. But when Woody gets taken away by a fat man named Al of Al's Toy Barn, he discovers that he has his own franchise and meets other characters of Woody to round up, like Jessie the Yolin Cowgirl, Trusty Horse Bullseye, and Stinky Pete the Prospector. The film featured way more advanced animation, especially on the humans, and more locations than in the first film. It also featured more mature themes like being forgotten and retirement. Upon release, like the first film, got overwhelming praise and even some calling it the best in the franchise, and even grossed over $500 million, winning a Golden Globe for Best Picture. A year later in 2000, Disney Television Animation made a direct-to-video film called Buzz Lightyear of Star Command: The Adventure Begins, which is a pilot to the TV series. It was made by the same people who would later on create Kim Possible and lasted until 2001. Because of the success of the first two Toy Stories, Pixar made other big hits that got praise from critics and became box office smashes and won tons of awards like Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, and The Incredibles. However, even the best can have some troubles. Pixar and Disney originally had a 7-film distribution agreement that gave Disney full ownership of Pixar's feature films and characters up to the film Cars, as well as sequel rights. With the success of Toy Story 2 and the end of 1999, then Disney CEO Mike Eisner and then owner of Pixar Steve Jobs began to disagree on how Pixar should be run in terms of a continuing relationship. Eisner claimed that Toy Story 2, as well as it was a sequel, did not count towards the original film count of the agreement, though Jobs disagreed, and Jobs announced that in January of 2004, after 10 months of negotiation, that Pixar would not renew their agreement with Disney and would seek out other distributors for releases starting in 2006. Jobs wanted Pixar to receive most of the profits that their films made, giving Disney the standard 10% distribution fee, as well as full ownership of any future films and characters that Pixar would create after Cars. Eisner found these terms unacceptable. Pixar executive producer John Lasseter, who had previously directed Toy Story 2, A Bug's Life, and Toy Story 2, became distraught over the breakdown of the Disney-Pixar relationship, as he was worried that what Disney might do with the characters Pixar had created. When he had announced what happened at a meeting of Pixar's 800 employees, Lasseter repeatedly through tears. It's like you have these dear children and you had to get enough to be adopted by convenient child molesters. Ugh, creepy. In March 2005, Disney Circle 7 was formed as a CGI animation studio to create sequels to Disney-owned Pixar properties, and the studio began to hire staff shortly thereafter. It was seen as a bargaining chip by people within Pixar and Disney, but also as a backup plan by Eisner in case negotiations fell through. The first and only projects that the studio worked on were early drafts of Toy Story 3, Monsters Inc. 2, and Finding Nemo 2, all of which did get made in some form. Fortunately, that never happened. In 2005, Bob Iger became the new CEO of Disney and brought Pixar for $7.4 billion, and John Lasseter became the chief creative officer of both Disney and Pixar as well. Well, at the time. After 10 long years, the third installment of the Toy Story franchise was released in June 18, 2010, called Toy Story 3. Andy is now a teenager going to college, which worries that the toys may never be played with again. But luckily, they accidentally end up in a Sunnyside daycare where they would never have to worry about being abandoned. However, it turns out that Sunnyside is actually a hell hazard run by a tyrannical teddy bear named Lotso. So now they have to find a way to escape. The film is considered to be the darkest of the trilogy, featuring themes like loss of friends, since many of the toys like Bo Peep, Weezy, and RC are not in here, as well as the infamous incinerator scene. It also features some really updated CGI, since Pixar has mastered the CGI animation through the years. Upon release, the film got critical praise and became the first ever animated film to gross $1 billion. It got 2 Oscars and was nominated for 3 other ones. One for Best Picture, being the third anime film to do so. A year later, Pixar made shorts based Toy Story called Toy Story Tunes. The first being Hawaiian Vacation, the second being Small Fry, and the last being Partysaurus Rex. In 2013 and 2014, Pixar went to the realm of DreamWorks TV specials, the first being Toy Story of Terror, which sees the toys in a haunted hotel, the second being Toy Story That Time Forgotten, which is about Trixie the Triceratops from the third film, going up against a Bowser's playset. Now, people would expect the Toy Story 3 to be the last in the trilogy. However, that was not the case, for on June 21st, 2019, Toy Story 4 was released. Say a year after 3, Bonnie has adopted the toys and goes on a road trip. When her new toy she made in school called Forky gets lost, Woody goes out to find him. Woody would then meet a not so evil doll named Gabby, and reunites with Bo Peep from the first two films. The film features some of the best animation in the series, with some scenes almost looking like real life, and like I said before, features the return of long-lost Toy Story character Bo Peep. Despite being considered pointless, it still got strong praise and even grossed $1 billion and even won an Oscar, making Toy Story the first anime franchise to win more than one Oscar for each film. Months later, when Disney Plus was released, Pixar made Forky Ask a Question, which was about Forky asking life's biggest questions. A year later in 2020, Pixar made another Disney Plus short called Lamp Life, which was set during the event after Bo Peep was sold. In 2022, Pixar made their first spin-off called Lightyear, which is set in the Buzz Lightyear universe, seeing Buzz become the iconic space ranger defeating the Emperor Zurg. It got okay reviews. What a history, what a legacy. Not many anime film franchises would receive many praise, win tons of awards, and gross many money, and be in many top 10 lists like Toy Story. With many shorts, toys, video games, and many rides at Disneyland, here's to more Toy Stories. So, now what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.